What is going on, faithful, this Wednesday evening? Hope everybody's doing good. Uh, I don't stream regularly, so I figure when I do, I got to have some impact. So I figure, why not bring Jesse Naylor on? He's about as impactful as it gets. So, Jesse, first of all, how are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic, man. I appreciate those kind words. I'm just here to have fun, man. You and I always have a great time when we do these shows together. You asked me to come on yesterday, and I was like, I got time. I definitely got time. Let's do
Right.
it.
Because I know your schedule is tough, especially with kiddos and all that stuff. So I'm always
it
like,
it is. It is. And normally tonight I'd be going with Grant, but we pushed because of the Warriors game, and so hey, I was like, I'm down to go. Like I'm ready to go on Wednesdays anyways. So let's rock.
awesome, awesome. So, real quickly, for anybody that's just jumping in here, the Niners have, in fact, Kyle Shanahan has, in fact, canceled the last day of OTAs, which would have been tomorrow. It was Tuesday through Thursday. Me and Jesse were discussing off camera that, I think he's gotten what he needed to see. There's a lot of positive news coming out of camp. Like it's almost too positive, and it's setting me up to be really disappointed when the season starts or when training camp starts. But there's just a lot of positivity, and that's good because I'm a super negative guy when it comes to the 49ers. I'm always on the glass half empty, so I'm pretty cool. I figure we start in the Trey Lance topic, OTA news. A lot of positivity coming around about how he's looking, how the ball's coming out of his hand, the deep ball, all that stuff. What's your kind of take on that? How are you measured with your reactions to things, or your how you kind of like, do you think of things in more of a realistic term, or do you get as hyped up when people talk about how great he's looking, and let your mind go there?
Yeah, well, first of all, let me acknowledge this guy in the chat, Bent Dink. He's a Rams fan. For some reason, he was notified for the show. Stick around, man. You'll get to learn about your opponents. They say you should know your enemy more than you know your
Right.
allies. So stick around, learn what it's going to be like. It'll be great. You'll understand by the end of this, possibly, why the 49ers are going to continue to own the Rams. Hopefully, that continues in the playoffs.
I
Just joking, man.
wonder if
Congratulations on your Super Bowl, for real.
definitely congratulations. I don't know, maybe you accidentally subbed me. I don't know. That is kind of weird. Uh
You know what? He might have subbed you or something during the NFC Championship week or something like that. Scouting the opponent,
right.
ran across it. I don't know. Who knows? But stick
That
around,
is
man.
crazy. Yeah,
Show
stick
some
around.
love.
You can listen to us talk about how we're going to dominate this year, and this is the year to do it. And Trey Lance is going to be the reason why. But yeah, what's your take on the whole Trey Lance, the news that's coming out? It's been pretty positive so far.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly been positive, and here's the thing, right? Because your initial reaction is say, "Yes, I knew it." Like I said the whole time, this was the guy. I've been on it. Everybody's starting to see it, but it's too early for that. Like, let's
It
just be
is.
frank. They're not playing with pads. They're not playing with helmets. It's 7-on-7s, 11-on-11s. A lot of the starters aren't even there on both sides of the ball.
Right.
And so, as much as you want to get excited about it, basically Trey Lance is doing what he's supposed to do. Right now, he's supposed to look good. This is the time that you're supposed to look the best you're going to look
Yep.
because of those circumstances. But he's doing it, Aaron. Like that's what's most important. Because when you hear about guys like Zach Wilson struggling, you've seen multiple videos come out of Deshaun Watson throwing multiple picks now, back to back days essentially. Trey Lance is not doing those things, and so although you want to temper your expectations because of the situation at hand, you also have to applaud him because he's doing what he should be doing. And a lot of other quarterbacks are not doing those things that they should be doing right now. So it's I'm kind of in the middle with it, right? Excited, glad to see that he's doing what he should be doing. That's step one. Now let's see what happens going forward as they get into training camp and those types of things. But I will say this real quick. Last year, I remember I talked to Sean McAvoy, his personal quarterback coach, around this time. I believe it was the second. No, excuse me. Yeah, it was the second interview I think I had with him, not the third, the second. But anyways, he talked about how going into this time, this basically 60 days or so before they get into training camp, this was the most important time for refining his game, right? And so I expect that's going to be much of the same this year. They will take that time. They will refine his game now that he's worked on his mechanics, shown those improvements, got a little bit with the team. That means he's able to talk with coach and get some takeaways on what he needs to continue to work on, improve on, and those types of things. And now this 60 days is hardcore, getting into it, getting better, and that's going to be extremely important to his growth before they hit training camp.
His attitude and just the way he comes off, to me is we're older than a lot of these players. I'm just impressed because some players come on the podium and they talk, and I'm just like, oh, please don't, just stop, go away. Like, you're doing yourself a disservice. Anytime I listen to Trey, I feel very good about things. I don't know. I know it's kind of weird to say because it's just words, but it's just he has a really calming presence. I almost get without the corny stuff, I almost get a Russell Wilson vibe from him as just far as like, Russell Wilson never seemed flustered. He always said the right thing in press conferences. He was always like the consummate professional. Again, minus the corny stuff that he does. So like, there's definitely that vibe, but yeah, it's so hard to really take anything out of any type of, practices that don't involve contact or helmets or pads or pass rush. So, but you're right. A lot of people always gave Jimmy credit for doing the things that he was supposed to do. So let's keep the same energy and give Trey the same kind of, pat on the back and say, way to go, guy, for stuff that he's supposed to be doing as a NFL quarterback. So I'm definitely encouraged. Want to say hi to the chat real quick. Niner Faithful, how are you doing? Frank Tom Ocean, a longtime supporter of the channel. What is up?
Great name, by the way. I love that.
When I think of Frank Tom Ocean, I think of like putting a lot of sunscreen on and just sitting and watching the water, but not actually going into it. Raphael 5629ers, longtime supporter of the channel.
Raphael's a good one.
Carcast, Brian Culp's everywhere. You guys are awesome. Of course, we got Beto in the house. How you doing, Beto? Hope everything's getting better. My man had the vid. He had the COVID, so hopefully he's feeling better. My brother had it, and just got taste back about a week ago. So it was a little rough. So my thoughts and prayers for you and your wife, man, that you guys are better, and hopefully you'll be able to taste your food soon. So.
I talked to him earlier today, just to we exchanged a couple messages. Sounds like him and his wife are on the mend. So
nice.
Prayers are definitely with you guys for sure.
Definitely. I guess we transitioned to another quarterback that's still here, unfortunately. Jimmy Garoppolo. The news that he was told to stay away and rehab his shoulder off site. To me, that was the best news that I've heard so far. People can say they're only doing it because of his shoulder. This is Trey's team. This is Trey Lance's team. There's no other way to cut it. Jimmy Garoppolo, once healthy, they will try to trade him, and that's kind of where my mindset is with this. People who want to talk about, if he was still, if he wasn't on, if he was what we thought he was, Trey Lance, he wouldn't be gone. He would be gone. I forget the name of this guy, the guy that makes the videos. He was a former scout. Yeah, that weirdo. So what's your take on the Jimmy Garoppolo situation as far as like them telling him to stay away, and what kind of mindset do you think? How does that help Trey? Because I think it does, because it just gives him that much more confidence that he is the dude.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that I've said the whole time is I know that outwardly they're projecting like, oh, Jimmy and Trey are going to be here. Some people are getting that vibe. But if you really listen close, they've been telling us for a while that Trey's the guy. Like they said it during the league meetings, both Shanahan and Lynch. They said it again the very first open practice. They've continued to say it. The players are saying it. And the one thing I said was, and this was months ago, it doesn't matter what they're portraying to us, as long as behind the scenes they're telling Trey, you're the guy. Don't worry about any of this nonsense. You're who we're rolling with, and giving him that confidence, then everything's fine. And just seeing, kind of going back to your point of talking about how Trey is carrying himself, seeing how he is carrying himself compared to last year at this time, there isn't that nervous energy coming from him at all. He clearly looks like he belongs. He clearly is a leader of this team, and he clearly is QB1. He knows that. The team knows that, and that's all that matters. So all of that other stuff is just noise at this point. Now, what happens with Jimmy and asking him to stay away? Again, I think that was just another step in showing, hey, Trey is the guy, right? But I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen with Jimmy. I would assume that he's going to be cut. I don't think he's going to get traded. Maybe they do have him stick around. I don't know. But regardless of any of that, he's not the starter. Trey Lance is. That's really all I care about. You know what I mean? I would prefer that they get that contract off the books, save that money, roll it over to next year and double it up.
Mm-hmm.
But if that's not what they decide to do, that's not what they decide to do. I think it would be a mistake if they don't do that. But as long as Trey is the quarterback and that's the direction they're moving in, and it certainly seems to be that, it sounds that way, then it's all good.
I just find it interesting that nobody's talking about him, Jimmy. Like everybody mentally seems like has completely just moved on. Which, I mean, I guess that's what you do as a professional, and that you don't really have much of a choice. But man, hearing D'Amico Ryan sing the praises again in OTA practices, again with no defense rushing you, but to hear the praise from D'Amico, that was awesome. That to me, that gives me a lot of. I mean, what are they gonna say? But come on, let's be positive. It's good to hear that the fact that he's.
It is good to hear, but at the same time, just listen to what everybody says, right? Of course, these are people that are in his corner, and so some of it's noise and whatever, right? But at the same time, everybody consistently from before he was drafted, by the way, before he was drafted and going through the draft process up through now, everybody says the same things. You consistently hear mature beyond his years, knows the playbook, has great command, good teammate, good leader, humble, smart, hard worker, loves football. Those things continually come up, right? Now, we can argue some of the rest of, he's shredding the defense or whatever. But at the same time, there are reports that he's doing just that, right? There were reports he was doing that even last year. And so I don't know, man. There's seems to be a lot of crazy noise coming from outside the organization from a national perspective, which is extremely strange. Talked about it a lot. I'm sure you've talked about it a ton as well. It doesn't make a lot of sense, but I imagine that a lot of that noise is going to quiet down based off of what is actually being reported coming out of these 2 weeks or so, that people were able to put eyes on Trey Lance and shoot videos of Trey Lance and report on what Trey Lance actually looks like. All that noise should be laid to rest until we get into training camp, and then it'll all start back up again.
It's funny you say that is because I uploaded a clip about 2 hours ago from Good Morning Football and Peter Schrager. The narrative's changing, and now it's kind of like going a little bit that pro Trey Lance narrative, which has been completely the opposite. No matter where, if you listen to the guys from Get Up or whatever, the idiots that talk about him being one play Trey and all this other garbage, I have to learn not to watch that stuff because it makes my blood pressure go up. But at least with Schrager's always a pro Niner guy anyways. He's big on the Niners, so I like him. But the fact that he they had their little 4 people on screen, their main 4 guys that are on the network all the time on Good Morning Football, and he was talking about just the thought about he said something like the thought around the league or the talk around the league is that he's really starting to show, like his ability is really starting.
Imagine that.
Wow. Like everybody else, they're like the last ones to get it. But I understand. I mean, I'm from the East Coast. East Coast media is always super hating on the West Coast. It's just East Coast bias. That's how it always is. Sucks being a Niners fan living in New York. But I mean, people say, well, it's the West, it's the Niners media. Of course, they're going to be positive. Not everybody's positive. There's a lot of people that are really, really critical. There's even people like, and I'm not taking shots at him. Not trying to think of his name. Lombardi? No, not Lombardi. Is it Lombardi? He had
spreadsheet. Lombardi.
Yeah, he even had some positive things to say about Trey, which
Mhm.
is very, very, very different because I can't say he's been pro Jimmy. He's always had a measured approach about how he feels about things. If that sounds fair, I'm not trying to
Yeah.
attack.
Yeah.
So yeah, even from him coming, I was like, wow, the worm is starting to turn. It's nice to hear, but like you said, it's going to start all over again. As soon as training camp hits, it's going to be the same old thing. So
The thing that's weird to me though is it's one thing to, East Coast bias, or it's also one thing, and this is completely fair. If you don't want to believe the hype, or you want him to show it before you believe it, that's totally fine. Like that's completely fair. Like we all have our opinions, right? But nobody truly knows until we actually see it. And even then, nobody's truly going to know until probably the end of next season. Quarterbacks and players really deserve 3 years in the league before we really start to judge who these guys are, good or bad. We've seen people come in and be good and go downhill from there. And then we've seen people come in and be bad and improve from there. And so you just never really know until that third year, after that third year, really who players are for the most part. But it's the flat out lying, right? You talked about it. One play Trey. Okay, that's fine. But right before that, he's talking about how, well, we've only seen him in one start. You're at that point, you're making things up. We saw him start 2 games. What are we saying? You saw him in one start. Well, then you aren't watching enough film, apparently, to know what the hell you're talking about. So why should anybody listen to what you're saying? And then what's crazy to me is you have certain people that don't believe in Trey Lance, right? And they take those quotes and they run with them, knowing for themselves that Trey Lance started 2 games for the 49ers. They actually put eyes on this. Yet when they hear somebody say he's only started 1 game and then proceed to say whatever they're going to say, they run with those quotes. It's like you don't even believe your own eyes at this point. You're just going with it because you want to be right about a situation that you're most likely going to be wrong about, right? And so I don't know, the whole thing's just so bizarre to me. It's a weird situation. That's all
yeah,
I know.
yeah, it's super weird. Like the fact that these guys, Jack Hammer made a good point. He's like he says they all say it's like they all copy each other.
Mhm.
It's like maybe they have the same teleprompter, and then one guy one day will say something. Jack Hammer was saying, and he watched something the later on in that day. Another analyst said the exact same, pre-typed out opinion about Trey Lance, and it goes like I know for a fact that they don't watch games. Like just
Uh-oh. Is that me or is that Aaron? Tell me in the chat. Did Aaron freeze? I think
oh
Aaron froze. Nope. There you go. Okay.
no, I was going to say that I have the ticket and I watch all the games. You could just tell by the what comes out of these guys' mouth, just the lack of intelligence and the lack of just no, like they don't watch it. It's so easy to pick up on. So to me, I don't watch ESPN. I barely watch NFL Network. I only watch NFL Network maybe after a Niners win because I like to listen to Schrager kind of talk us up a little bit. But other than that, I have to stay away from network television because a lot of it is just repeatable stuff that every other guy copies from the next. So I don't
I,
know.
I'm with you, by the way. I genuinely don't watch any of that stuff anymore. I remember, as a kid, I lived and died by all that stuff. And,
Yep.
even as I was a little bit older, I would same thing. I'd watch everything, I'd listen to everything. But ever since I started creating content, I just that takes up all my free time. Now,
Hmm.
it doesn't mean I don't see things, right? Twitter is great. People will take short clips and post them, and so you'll get to see it that way. But I don't actively seek it out. And quite frankly, the reason is because I genuinely feel this, not just because I'm a content creator. And it doesn't have to be me. I'm not saying support me. If I'm not your cup of tea, that's fine. But find somebody within the community that is, because I promise you that this community of content creators knows more about this team
Yes, they do.
Anybody that you're watching on the talking head networks, I
Yep.
guarantee you, except for unless it's a beat writer unless it's a writer that comes on that writes specifically for the 49ers for ESPN, which you never see. Those guys never make it onto TV. You can support them, read their articles or whatever. Maybe they're in an interview every once in a while. Check that out. But it, if it's not somebody local or it's not somebody that knows the 49ers inside and out, I don't care. Like I know they don't know more. And the tipping point for me was, and I don't know if you saw this, Aaron, but this was like 3 months ago. It was I think it's Darius Butler. I don't know. He was an ex-cornerback for the Colts. He was on with Eric Crocker. They're good friends. And Roscoe's from Twitter, good friend of mine, he went on there and challenged him. They had a debate about Trey Lance actually right there on the show. And he had all these really, really strong opinions about Trey. And Roscoe's flat out asked him, did you watch those games all the way through before forming this opinion? And he said, I don't got time to do all that. That's all I need to hear. That's all I need to hear. And that's fine. If you cover every team, I don't expect you to know the ins and outs of every. That's unfair and it's unrealistic to expect that of you. And so, maybe if I care about what's going on around the league or with another team, maybe I'll tune in, whatever. Like, I guess, if you want to give your time then. But when it comes to your team that you support, whether you're a 49er guy, a Rams guy, a Cowboys guy, whatever, find somebody that knows this team or your team inside and out and stick with them, because it'll be a lot better off and your sanity will be a lot better because of it.
People can say what they want about Grant, but sometimes I like listening to his honest, non-fanboy opinion about the 49ers, because as a fan, I'm super critical. Mm-hmm. He's not a fan, and a lot of his wily, crazy takes that he talks, he ends up being right so many times. And and
he's the first to admit when he's wrong, which you've got to like that too.
I just like the fact that he's big on Trey. That makes me a very happy man, because Grant is a tough guy to please, but I think that had a lot to do with Jimmy Garoppolo and his just not a big fan of it. But yeah, like sometimes before I started making my channel, I used to listen to Grant all the time, especially when the Niners were like kind of crap in the bed. Someone like him or Larry Krueger is the same way. They do not toe the company or the network or the radio station line when it comes to how they feel. If they're going to crap on the Niners and be critical of maybe Jed York, man, I remember back when the Niners, they hired Tom Sula, they fired Tom Sula. They hired, what's his face, the coach from the Eagles that became, oh my God, you know what I'm talking about, right? Chip Kelly.
For what team are we talking about?
Chip Kelly. In the Niners, I was talking about how like, he was just, I remember when Chip Kelly was fired and then we were going into the offseason before we hired Shanahan. Right. Man, wow. Larry went in on the Niners and he was not like, and I was just like, I freaking love this. I love people who really give it. So yeah, I'm always of the mindset of like, as much as I'll beat the drum of the team, I'll also be the guy that'll be as critical. And you're right. If you're going to listen to anybody, listen to people that actually watch the team. It doesn't have to be me, because I'd rather people go watch someone who's a lot better. But the fact of the matter is, I know more about the 49ers than Stephen A. Smith does, regardless of how many millions he makes. I hate to say that, but I do. So, but yeah, that's a good point.
And it's funny that you bring up Stephen A. Smith, because I remember when ESPN signed their deal with the UFC, and I'm a big mixed martial arts guy as well.
Yes, you are.
And I remember they put Stephen A. Smith on a pay-per-view, and I was like, this is terrible. This dude has no clue what he's talking about. Literally zero clue. But because he's an ESPN guy and they just signed a deal, they're going to try to do this crossover thing. By the way, that lasted one time, and then they were like, yeah, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. We cannot have him on our shows. Like, this can't happen. So, and again, it's not, I don't want to take a shot at them because they're great at what they do. Obviously, they're getting paid a lot of money. They, and you're expected to know about every team and all those things. It's a lot. It certainly can be overwhelming. But again, my advice to you is just follow the local, the local guys, the content creators, whatever. However you want to go about doing that. Me, Aaron, doesn't matter. Anybody, but not those guys. I'm sorry.
Yeah, they don't have the beat. They don't have the heart, not the heartbeat. They just don't have the idea, the pulse. That's the word I'm looking for, of what goes on a daily basis for the team. So yeah, support your smaller content creators. That always, every little bit helps. I guess we could jump right into the Deebo Samuel topic. I did not expect him to be at mandatory OTAs. I did not.
Mm.
I think maybe you might have, because of the money situation and what he'd be losing, and the fact that he was on the field and kind of chilling with some of his teammates, catching balls from Kyle Shanahan's son, which I thought was pretty cool. That was super sweet, which gives me the thought of that his son's going to follow in his footsteps too and end up being, because that's what Kyle did back in the day. So
exactly. Yep.
That's awesome. What's your take on that? And do you, now that you're seeing that he's on premises, he's, ingratiated himself back into the mold, I guess, or into the fold, excuse me. How confident are you that they get a contract done before training camp?
Man, I don't know, but I don't know if it really matters either. I mean, at the end of the day, Deebo is about his money, right? As he should be. And this situation played out exactly how I thought it would. I figured he would show and not do anything. And the team expected it. They knew exactly what they were getting themselves into with that. They talked about it. And there's nothing wrong with it. He did exactly what he should, and they did exactly what they should. Uh, the whole thing is once the draft came and went, any thought of him being traded had to be gone. But this is where I separate things because I was strong. First of all, from the moment that anything happened on social media, I was on it immediately. Like not even before he stripped his account, he had made one comment and posted some song lyrics, and I'm like, I think he's talking about the 49ers. Grant made a big hubbub about it. He and I talked about it. He then posted about it. Obviously, Grant's bigger than me. He gets blocked by Deebo for it. And then everything else ensued, right? And so with that being said, I knew it was bigger than, just, he's, it's not all about football. It's whatever. I knew it was something bigger than that. So what I will say is once the draft came and went, I was very confident he would be a 49er this year. I was confident that they'd be able to probably work out something at some point. But the thought that Deebo was all of a sudden just happy because the draft came and went and wasn't holding firm to what he wanted, which was a trade at that time, I think was also laughable, right? They both can be true. Yes, they can get a deal done, and Deebo could be not content with the situation and still want out. And I think that that's where they were. Obviously, him showing up, people are, he was playing catch with the coach's kid. I'm sure he's just fine. Well, yeah, sure. As long as they're going to pay him, I'm sure he's just fine. But if they don't want to pay him, that's where the issue lies. Here's what I'll say, though, is Cup just got extended today. I don't know if you caught that.
I saw that. Yep, I saw that.
Okay, so
the Rams always have money somehow. I don't understand.
Always, right? And I can get into that. I know where the money's coming from, but at the same time, Cooper Kupp signed a 3-year extension on top of the 2 years he already had in place. So it's essentially a 5-year, $110 million deal. That goes in the favor of the 49ers. That does not work in Deebo's favor. So the last two big contracts that signed, A.J. Brown and Cooper Kupp, actually bode well for the 49ers based off of the guaranteed money that A.J. Brown got and based off of the overall money that Cooper Kupp got. Deebo Samuel is probably going to have to settle for less than what he expected going into this offseason. And at some point, maybe he's already made that assumption. Maybe they haven't. But at some point, him and his team are going to have to come to grips with that simple fact. And they're going to have to be willing to come down a little bit. And we'll see when that breaking point actually is.
Yeah, and I don't think everything's all perfect. I wouldn't say that either. But I just think when you act in good faith, both sides, the fact that he was there, and it's a small thing that he was playing catch with Kyle's son, but Kyle and him, from what Kyle says, have an open line of communication, and Kyle cares about his players. Kyle is a loyal coach to his guys. and he'll fight for his guys. And if anything gives me hope that he will get a deal done and he'll be playing, is the fact that he has that relationship with Kyle Shanahan. Will it be all sunshine and rainbows? Probably not. You never come away. At least what I gather from athletes, no one ever comes away from the negotiating table 100% happy on either side, because you got to make concessions. That's just how it works. That's why it's called negotiating. But listen, man, the Niners, people could say, oh, he only had one really good year. Listen, man, Deebo is a huge part of this offense. And I have another topic about Juwan Jennings and Ayuk and all that stuff. This team, if healthy, could be really, really scary this year offensively. That's all I'm going to say. I don't want to say anything because I don't want anybody to get hurt and then people come after me. But, dude, this is a deep ass team. It's pretty awesome. Listen, you fight through the dark years as a fan to get to a point right now where if we stay healthy and Trey plays really well, we could be in the mix again, just like last year. So I'm being super positive. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but it's a good place to be. I'd rather be here than be number one picking in the draft with no talent on my team. So,
well, and not only that, Aaron, it's not just this year that we could be in the mix. I mean, for the foreseeable future, I mean, barring something crazy, right? Like COVID or a mass exodus in the Harbaugh era, something like that.
Right.
I mean, I would expect minimum the next 3 years, they're very, very competitive. They're right there. Brady's only getting older, probably done after this year. That only helps the 49ers, right? The Rams are getting a little bit long in the tooth in a couple spots as well. They're not the deepest team in the world. They never really have been. They've been blessed with a lot of health, and maybe a lot of that is how they condition and take care of their players. I don't know, but at some point I got to imagine the way that the 49ers got injured, the Rams are got to have that at some point, right?
Right.
Not that I wish it. I certainly don't, but luck seems to be in their favor when it comes to those things. And so when you win, sometimes it's better to be lucky than good. In their case, they were both. But when does that luck run out, if ever? And so, to me, there's a lot of things that, as far as the 49ers go, to be positive about. Certainly, I think they're going to be competitive this year. They are going to be competitive the year after, and probably the year after that, and for the foreseeable future. So 49ers are in a great spot right now. And, we may nitpick some things or be quote unquote negative about some things or question some things with this organization. But overall, have they done a good job? The answer is a resounding yes. No question about it.
I was talking to this guy at work. He is a soccer fan first, but he follows football, and he's pretty up to date on the 49ers. We are from two different generations, but we agree on one thing. In order to be a Super Bowl caliber team or to win a Super Bowl, you have to have a really good or an elite quarterback. You have to. 100%. I'm sorry, the days of the Trent Dilfer riding the coattails of a defense or a Jimmy Garoppolo riding the coattails, it just doesn't. It doesn't happen all the time. It's like a 1 out of 10 shot. I'm telling you right now, man. If Trey Lance is what we think he is, and he just continues to get better, my boy Celts Chronicles, I'm giving him a shout out here. Go subscribe to his channel. He says the Niners could be on the precipice of a new dynasty. And people are like, yeah, I'm telling you, man, quarterback means everything. Quarterback and health. If this team has health and they have a quarterback, because quarterbacks they're like the ultimate deodorant, especially if other parts of your team are struggling. Say your defense is having a rough time or this, that, the other, but you have a quarterback that can just go out there and sling it and win games for you, like Brady, like Aaron Rodgers. Even when the team is maybe subpar in other areas, they're able to kind of uplift everybody else. So it means a lot. And I know all the guys that watch this channel or watch your channel or watch Grant's channel or Jason or whoever know that you have to have an elite level quarterback in order to win. So that's where I'm at on that. And I'll never come off that pulpit. So.
Well, you don't have to, because there's numbers that back that up. I went back and I did this. Somebody had asked this. I mean, this was during the season at some point. They said, what is the one thing you need to start a team, or, what does it take to be a winning team, a Super Bowl winning team? So I went and I looked it up. You realize that since 1988, only one quarterback has won a Super Bowl that has never been to a Pro Bowl prior to winning that Super Bowl. That
I
was
did
Joe
not.
Flacco. Even Trent Dilfer had made a Pro Bowl.
That's crazy.
Even who's the kid for Foles made a Pro Bowl. Brad Johnson made a Pro Bowl, right? Guys that you thought were quote unquote not good, or we all thought were not good, right? It doesn't mean that they were in their prime at that time. That's not what I'm saying. But at some point, they had proven to be a pretty decent quarterback in the league in order to actually win that Super Bowl. So, and if you want to take that out and you just want to go Hall of Fame caliber, I think only 8 Super Bowls, if I remember correctly. I'd have to go look at it. It's been a while, but only 8 Super Bowls since 1988 have been won by quarterbacks that weren't Hall of Fame caliber quarterbacks. So that shows you have to have good quarterback play to win a Super Bowl. Now, you've had a lot of guys make Super Bowls. They don't usually win Super Bowls. And in that one instance, by the way, that Joe Flacco did win, the reason that he probably won instead of the elite quarterback is because the quarterback opposite of him was Colin Kaepernick, who had also not been to a Pro Bowl. And so something had to give at that point, right? Both those teams were so good top to bottom that they were just able to make it. But usually when that plays out, much like 2019, unfortunately for the 49ers, when you have the better quarterback and you're in a Super Bowl, you usually win the game. That's the way that it works. So, yeah, it's very, very rare. The fact that Jimmy made it there and then made it to a second NFC championship, he's taken this team. History shows he's taken this team as far as he can take it.
Yep.
And it's no knock against him. Maybe Trey Lance is that guy. Maybe he's not. You know, your opinion really doesn't necessarily matter either way on this one. The only thing you need to know is history tells us that Jimmy is not the guy for sure. So they have to try something different. And so because of that, Trey Lance is here, and we'll see if he is that guy.
I can't wait. Let's get into some of these other topics so we can get everything out on time. Alex Mack retiring. Not a surprise on my part. Kind of knew it was coming. Getting married this off season, being in Ireland, and I just got the vibe that he wasn't coming back.
For sure.
Props to him. He had a great career. One of the good dudes in the league. Played a long time. A lot of people are talking up Jake Brendel as the man to replace him. Some people are saying Brunskill. Some people are like you are lobbying for Treader. Is it JC Treader?
Yeah.
I don't know where he played, what team he played for, but you've been banging that drum for a while. What's your take on that whole center situation? Kind of I can't say unrest, but just the kind of the question mark.
Yeah, I think that's exactly it, right? We just don't know. We have no idea. Now, maybe this offensive line will end up being really, really good. Maybe it won't, right? And we just don't know the answer. We will soon. Here's what I'll say is I would prefer to go in with a veteran that I know can play at a high level.
Right.
I think a lot of people are worried about JC Treader, who came from the Browns. A lot of people are worried about him because of his injury history. Lower extremity, he's had some issues there the last couple of years, but he doesn't miss games. He only misses practices. And when he plays as far as a pass blocker goes, one of the best in the NFL, even with those injuries in place, right? So if he's even slightly healthier, imagine how much better he will be. Now, Mac wasn't the same player that he was years prior, but he was still a Pro Bowl level player, as was Laken Tomlinson. We don't know what Brendel is going to be. We don't know what Banks is going to be, but I feel pretty confident in saying that they're not going to be Pro Bowl level, right? And so immediately right there, that means the offensive line is taking a step back.
Yep.
And if that's the case, you're doing it with a second-year quarterback. That's never a good thing, in my opinion. So it may work out. It may not stop them from winning any games. It may not stop them from getting to a Super Bowl or what have you, right? It may not be the difference. But Aaron, if it is the difference and they've had the answer this whole time, that goal, I've been calling it a golden ticket, which is Jimmy G's contract. Jimmy G's contract is the golden ticket. Most teams that are in this situation, every team has holes they need to fill, but every team does not have a golden ticket that they can cash in to go fill those holes.
Yep.
The 49ers got better on special teams. That's fantastic. They got better on defense. That's fantastic. I expect that they're better at running back. Even the receivers are probably better. Quarterback, certainly. They got better pretty much everywhere. But if that offensive line is atrocious for any reason and it stops them from winning a Super Bowl, the 49ers will get killed for it because they had the golden ticket. They did have an option in a guy like JC Treader, assuming they don't go and sign him at any point. And if that ends up being the reason that they lose, then they've opened themselves up to scrutiny because the answers were there, right? And so we'll see how it plays out. I think Brindle, obviously, he tested through the roof athletically, extremely smart, it sounds like, from both Trey Lance and Trent Williams. Those things are all great. But at the end of the day, we're talking about a guy who's been in the league for a long time. I believe he's 29 years old. He hasn't really played any football at this level. He's been bouncing from team to team, practice squad to practice squad, sat out the COVID year. This guy is an unknown, just like a rookie's an unknown. And I would probably venture to guess, unless they get lucky and it's a Raheem Mostert type situation or it's a Kurt Warner type situation where a guy for some reason just can't land on his feet and then he gets the perfect spot and explodes, the likelihood of that happening is slim to none, right? And so unless that is the case, I think JC Treader is certainly the better option, but we'll see how it plays out.
Yeah, we'll definitely see. We got a little time still. So
yeah,
that if that Garoppolo contract comes off the book, and according to Albert Breer, it looks like the Niners might know soon, depending on how his shoulder when he's ready to throw. I don't really take anything from the Albert Breer article because it's really just a lot of what ifs and we'll see. That's not really any new news, but yeah, something that came out I'd seen right before I came live. Niner Sickness has a question for you. He says, Jesse, question for you. Trey Lance struggles real bad this season. How many of the faithful would turn on him? And I'm just curious to your answer.
Oh, 90%.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, people are impatient. People
super
expect.
Impatient.
Here's the thing. It's I'll even take it a step further. If he plays well, clearly better than Jimmy, but they don't make it far in the playoffs. Let's say they miss the playoffs, but it's not his fault. You're going to have a big chunk that turns on him anyways. Well, I mean, if it was Jimmy, Jimmy would have made it here, and Jimmy would have this, and Jimmy would have that. Like he's got some magic elixir that makes the whole team better. People won't look at just Trey Lance as an individual. They're going to judge it based off of the team and how the team does. And if the team doesn't go to an NFC championship, which there's a big chance that doesn't happen, people are going to crap on Trey Lance regardless of whether it was him or not. And that's just the way that people are going to react to the situation.
Totally agree, 100%. It's almost like Super Bowl or bust for Trey Lance, unfortunately.
Yeah, and I do want to address this real quick. Ray says, will JC Treader fit into Kyle's offense? Perfectly, actually. You got to remember, Cleveland runs a form of Shanahan's offense and has for the last couple of years. So, yeah, he would fit fantastically into that offense.
Great answer, Jesse. I'll ask these as a dual question. Ayuk and Juwan Jennings, are both of them on the cusp of having a breakout season?
Well, man, I would say yes, because I just talked about it with Trey Lance. Year three. That's when you really start to see this leap, and that's when you start to know who guys are. Brandon Ayuk was in the doghouse last year to start the year for whatever reason. Jennings was a guy who was super far down the depth chart, had to work his way through, became a starter, partway through the season, finished extremely strong, also going into his third year. The way that people talk about Jennings, by the way, and it's funny because I think a lot of the fan base is like, oh man, I would like to get, this at the slot receiver. It's almost like he's been glossed over. But when you listen to the players talk about him, Fred Warner was on Sherman's podcast. This was about 2 months ago. And the way he talked about Jennings openly was like, not only is he going to be fine, but he's one of the better football players on this team. The way that you heard Shanahan talk about him, Shanahan's pretty honest in some of, a lot of the things that he says. He's almost too honest sometimes.
Yeah.
And he talked about speed doesn't matter. It's all about, do you get separation? And he gets more separation than any of those guys. Like, these are glowing remarks that these guys are saying about Jennings. I think Jennings is a hell of a player. He's certainly different than anything else we got. He's that big body guy. He reminds me low key, and I'm not going to say he's going to be as good as this guy, but just the way he plays, he plays with a bit of a physical brand, always wins at the catch point, runs good routes, slow, but always finds a way to be open. Anquan Bolden. Anquan Bolden was never the fastest guy, never dropped the ball. That guy had the best hands of, I mean, one of the best hands I've ever seen. Always found a way to be open, extremely smart, great target in the red zone, all those things. And I feel like Jennings is a very similar mold to that. So yeah, I mean, and I think the popular thing, and I've said it as well, is that Ayuk's going to break out this year. I watched him in the NFC Championship. I went back and I reviewed that film for my members on my channel, and he ran something like 22 total routes that weren't clear out routes, and of the 22, 17 he was butt naked, wide open, and didn't get the ball. I mean, yeah, I think film and just year 3 says these guys are going to break out this year.
That's when I was like I was just saying about 10 minutes ago about us being deep and we low key could be really good. Those are the reasons, and I'm glad that you agree. Hufanga, kind of the name going around camp to be the man to replace Kwaski Tart. How confident are you, and or are you still a little bit skeptical?
I'm skeptical and confident at the same time, and I'll explain myself. I'm skeptical that Hufanga is going to be the starter, just because I really think if Moore can be healthy, that he's going to make a run for that starting job. I believe that. We'll see what ends up happening. So I'm not positive who the starter is going to be, but no matter who it is, I'm confident. And the reason that I say that is because the 49ers, I believe, and I thought this going into last year, unfortunately, Verrett literally went down week 1. The 49ers were a team that ran a lot of cover 3 and a lot of cover 4. And then when DeMeco Ryans took over and you started to see some of the players they were drafting, the guys that were going to start, I was like, oh, this is going to be a cover 1 press man team. That is what they want to do. Well, not only did they double down on that by drafting more guys that fit that mold, they signed Tavarius Ward, who also fits that mold. They brought back Verrett, who fits that mold. And that means that this safety, whoever it is, doesn't have to be the best coverage guy. So let's say it's Hufanga. People talk about his coverage. That's where they nitpick him, right? Mm-hmm. Totally fair. A little bit slow, his instincts, we can talk about that all we want. But we do know that he plays well in the box. Well, if you're playing cover 1, guess where he gets to play? He can sit right in the box. Jimmy Ward can be the over-the-top guy. Let him roam. Let him cover those blown coverages and whatever else needs to be done. If they're playing cover 1, then they're fine. With Tart being there, Tart was great at roaming and taking half the field and being able to hold his own, even though he didn't force a lot of turnovers. But if they're not planning on playing that way, then it really doesn't matter, because Jimmy Ward is a hell of a safety. He's a chameleon. He can do whatever you ask him to do. He can play in the box. He can play man. He can play over the top as a single high safety. He can play over the top as a 2 high safety. He can do everything you need. So that means whoever is opposite of him, you can play to their strengths regardless, because you have the talent in place to do exactly what you want to do, which is to play man anyways.
Yeah, I think I might have had you on or months ago, and you had almost reiterated the same thing about the way that they were starting to kind of draft and the corners that they were bringing in, that the offense or the defense might go away from this cover 3, the less zone, more man, and that the safety would have less responsibility somewhat, I guess. So I think that was you that said it, and you doubled down on it. And I'll hold you to your feet to the fire for that one for sure.
That's totally fine. I'm sure a lot of people will.
I just wanted to touch on D Ford being almost out of here. D Ford, they say if he passes his physical, pretty much he's gone. If you had to rate this transaction on a 1 to 10 of a failure of epic proportions, where would you rank it?
I'm probably not as high as what you would expect. I'll put it right in the middle. And the reason is because we can't have it both ways, right?
Right.
I think a lot of 49er fans get frustrated. You heard it a lot this offseason. Go all in. This is your year. Go all in. Go all in. Go all in.
I was one of
Well,
them.
in 2019, they went all in and it almost got them a ring, right? D Ford was a part of going all in, just
Right.
like Quan Alexander was a part of that going all in. Manuel Sanders, 1 year rental, was a part of the going all in. Those guys didn't produce long term for the 49ers, not a single one of them. But guess what it did? It got them to this point where they almost won a ring and has got that swag for that team going forward. I feel for D Ford because I know that he wants to play. Sounds like he still would love to play if he can. He's still not even that old, which is crazy. His body's just betraying him, man, and that's got to be a crappy feeling. But you know, they certainly paid him a lot of money, right? That's why I'm not going to put this at a zero because they paid him a hell of a lot of money. He really didn't play a lot for the 49ers. That certainly doesn't bode well. But at the end of the day, the effort was there to go all in, and the result wasn't there. But they did what everybody's been clamoring for them to do this offseason, and it just didn't work out for them. So I'm right in the middle at a 5.
I blame the front office more than anything on this one, just because of all the history and all the, just all the proof out there that he had all these injury problems, and then they still, paid a second rounder or whatever they paid to get him. So to me, it's less on him and more on the front office. Last thing, real quick. Gore officially retires a 49er. Your thoughts?
Man, inconvenient truth. One of my
Hell yeah.
favorite players of all time, man.
Me
I
too.
love Frank Gore. Great man, great teammate, great leader. Talk about your body betraying you. I mean, at a young age, it couldn't have been any worse with that stacked backfield they had in Miami with McGahee and Portis, and he was the best out of all of them. Nothing but respect for Frank Gore, man. I absolutely, the way he ran the ball was so fun to watch, so inspiring. I'll never forget some of those little creases he was able to get. I mean, he would get skinny in between in the smallest area. You're like, how is that even possible? How did you come out of that not tripped up and broke it for 40? Frank Gore, I always have love for Frank Gore, man. One of my favorite 49ers of all time.
One of my
Absolutely love
first
that he
authentics that I
retired.
bought. I was going to say one of my first authentics that I ever bought jerseys was a Frank Gore jersey.
Frank Gore.
And it's still in my closet. It was when Reebok had it. So
yeah. I have a Patrick Willis Reebok jersey, I think.
I have I might have a couple of Reebok jerseys actually, but well, it's time. Everybody, I appreciate everyone for coming in the chat and being part of this journey tonight with Jesse and me. I'm going to let Jesse get out of here. But Jesse, I appreciate you coming on. As usual, I always have a great time with you. You're very easy to talk to and you're very knowledgeable. Definitely want to do this again. As I approach 5,000 subs, I want to do a big show with like you, Rob, Jackhammer, possibly, kind of just, like if we're going to do it, let's go big. So hopefully
I feel like, and maybe I'm mistaken, but I swear I was on right before 4,000.
you were,
if I'm not mistaken.
So you're
okay.
like the,
I'm the good luck charm. I'm
you're-
the rabbit's foot, so to speak, of the show. So
that's why I had you
you're
on. No,
almost at 5,000. That's why I'm coming on. Guys, if you are not, guys and gals, if you are not subscribed, make sure you subscribe. Get this man over 5,000. It's a great feeling when you reach those milestones, 4,000, 5,000, all of them.
Right.
As a content creator, it's those milestones that keep us going. And
Definitely.
So he's how close are you at this point? 100 away?
About 50 away? About 50?
All right. 50 away. Get him over 5,000. Let's make it happen.
Please. And all of Jesse's info is in my description. I have his Twitter and I have his YouTube channel, Last Second Sports. Make sure you guys click the subscribe button and the bell notification so that you can catch all of his programming as well. Jesse is one of the best. And we're going to go out with a $5 super chat for 5K. Frank Tom Ocean. Thank you.
One of the better names.
Best name ever. Thank you very much, everybody, for coming on here and supporting the channel tonight. Thank you, Jesse, for hopping in. Everybody take care. Everybody stay healthy. And I'll see you guys on the flip side. Bye, everyone.